I'd been working at the kitchen table all morning, laptop balanced between a stack of dictionaries and an empty coffee mug. Translating brochures about household appliances doesn't sound romantic, and it isn't, but it pays enough to keep me in my little upstairs apartment. At noon, the Wi-Fi cut out again. No warning, just a spinning icon where the words should have been. I patted down the creaky stairs with my phone in one hand, rent envelope in the other. The hallway smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and rain-damp carpet. She was there, crouched by the fuse box, a cordless screwdriver in her hand. Miss Khan, the landlady. Mid-40s, dark hair pinned back loosely, reading glasses balanced on her head like she'd forgotten about them. She looked up first. "Oh, sorry, were you trying to get online?" she asked, shifting to let me pass. Her knees brushed the wall. She had a thermos tucked by her feet. "It's okay," I said, hovering by the banister. I thought it was my router again. "It's the building's signal booster. I'm replacing the battery." She tapped the open panel, then gave a small, almost embarrassed smile. "I should have warned you." I watched her fingers tighten a screw. They were steady but a little rough, like someone used to fixing things herself. For a moment, I forgot why I'd come down. My phone buzzed in my palm, but I didn't check it. "You do all this yourself?" I asked. "Most of it," she said, tightening another screw. "Cheaper that way, and I like knowing it's done right." She straightened and pushed a strand of hair behind her ear. "How's the translation work?" She remembered. I'd told her once, in passing, when she was collecting mail. "Slow," I said. "Brochures about vacuum cleaners today." She chuckled, a dry, low sound. "Sounds thrilling." I laughed too, though it came out softer than I meant. My thumb traced the edge of the rent envelope. I wanted to hand it to her, but suddenly felt self-conscious, like I'd rehearsed this in my head and forgotten the lines. She noticed the envelope and reached for it. "You're early," she said, taking it without looking straight at me. Her eyes flicked instead to my mug-stained shirt, then back to the fuse box. "Most people forget." "I don't like owing people," I said. It slipped out before I could soften it. She paused, maybe hearing more in the words than I intended. Her hands hovered over the panel. Then she closed it with a muted click. "That should hold for a while," she murmured. The hallway felt quieter, the hum of the fridge from her downstairs unit coming through the floor. She held the envelope against her palm, not moving away yet. I folded the edge of my sleeve, then unfolded it again. A silence stretched between us, not unfriendly, just unfilled. She broke it first. "If the signal drops again, just text me. I'll come up." "Thanks," I said. My voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. She capped her thermos, slung the screwdriver into her bag. As she started toward her apartment, she stopped, half turning back. "Do you ever work from cafes? There's one 2 streets over with better coffee than you make." I blinked. "Sometimes," I said, unsure if it was an invitation or small talk. She smiled faintly, or maybe I imagined it, and disappeared behind her door with a soft click. Back upstairs, my laptop reconnected. A new message popped up on my phone. From her. "I'll be at that cafe around 3 if you want to test their Wi-Fi." I stared at the screen, thumb hovering but not pressing reply. The hum of the fridge and the smell of lemon cleaner still in my head. I told myself I only went to the cafe for the Wi-Fi. A neutral space. 2 streets over, tucked beside a stationery shop. The sign out front was faded. The air inside smelled like cardamom and roasted beans. 3 o'clock on the dot, and there she was, already seated near the window. She had her thermos with her even here, which made me smile. A tiny island of routine she carried everywhere. She waved, small and casual, as though we'd done this 100 times. I ordered tea instead of coffee just to slow myself down, then slid into the chair across from her. The table was slightly sticky. A little sunlight pooled between our mugs. "I didn't scare you off," she said, adjusting her scarf. "No," I said. "You saved me from vacuum cleaner brochures." That drew a real laugh from her, brief but warm. She lowered her eyes, stirring sugar into her cup, though she didn't taste it. "I'm usually here alone," she said. "Feels less like I'm hiding if it's a cafe." I tilted my head. "Hiding from what?" She gave a small shrug. "From the apartment. From thinking too much." She looked out the window for a beat. "From my ex's calls." It was the first time she'd mentioned him. I didn't ask, but the word hung there anyway, a quiet marker between us. Mid-40s. Divorced, or nearly. My mind filled in the blanks without permission. Dinner's gone silent. Papers signed under fluorescent lights. I wondered if she still wore a ring when she fixed fuses. She changed the subject before I could. How long have you been translating? 3 years, I said. Started while I was finishing my degree. Thought I'd travel, but I gestured at my laptop bag. I just stayed. That doesn't sound so bad. It's not, but it's a lot of talking to myself. I smiled. And a lot of bad instant noodles. She smiled back, faint, like she understood something in that. For a moment we just sipped our drinks, the sound of cups setting down louder than our words. Outside, drizzle started to hit the window, small at first, then heavier. People hurried past with bags over their heads. You don't mind the rain? She asked. I like it, I said. Feels like an excuse to stay put. Me too. She leaned her elbows on the table, close enough that I caught the scent of soap on her sleeves. My son always teased me for that. I blinked. You have a son? 22. In Karachi now. Internship. She gave a little laugh, but her eyes stayed on the rain. He used to fix my phone when it froze. Now I fix routers for other people. Something in her voice was both proud and lonely. I wanted to say something kind, but the right words hid from me. Instead, I traced a finger along the rim of my mug, watching her watch the street. In my head, scenarios bloomed uninvited. Her son visiting and finding me in the hall, neighbors whispering. The look on my mother's face if she knew. You okay? She asked quietly. Yeah, I said. Just thinking. About work? Sort of. I almost told her the truth, that I'd been thinking about her, about the line we were already stepping near, but the words stayed behind my teeth. I took a sip instead. The tea had cooled. We stayed until the rain slowed. She reached into her bag, pulled out a folded paper. This is the maintenance schedule, she said, sliding it over. I usually tape it in the hall, but you can keep a copy if it helps. I took it, fingers brushing hers. Her hand was warm, calloused at the tips. The touch lasted a heartbeat too long before we both let go. She tucked her thermos under her arm, stood, then hesitated. Her gaze flicked toward the door, then back to me. You should try the cardamom buns next time, she said softly. They're better than tea. It sounded like a throwaway line, but she held my eyes as she said it. A small, almost invisible invitation, or maybe just a habit of kindness. Either way, it landed somewhere deep. I watched her walk out into the wet street, umbrella unopened, her scarf darkening with rain. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. 2 days later, she left her scarf on the back of the cafe chair. Dark blue, soft, still damp at the ends from rain. I found it after she'd gone. I almost ran after her, but the door had already swung closed. I carried it back to the building, folded over my arm. It smelled faintly of soap and cardamom. At my door I hesitated. Should I slip it under hers? Knock? Wait? Instead I kept it overnight, draped on a chair like it was drying. My laptop sat open, but I barely read a word. Every time I looked up the scarf was still there. The next morning I knocked. Soft. She opened the door in a loose sweater, hair still damp from a shower. Bare feet on the wood floor. She looked surprised, but not startled. You forgot this, I said, holding it out. Her eyes flicked from the scarf to my face. A pause. I did, didn't I? She said, voice quiet. She took it from my hand, fingers brushing mine. Longer this time. Then she stepped back, as if catching herself. Thanks, she added. I should have been more careful. I shrugged. It happens. My throat felt dry. Can I? I gestured vaguely toward the kitchen. Router's acting up again. Sure, she said, moving aside. But only if you let me make tea. Inside her unit, the air smelled of lemon and something cooking slowly. The kitchen table was covered with papers, maintenance forms, a half-written letter. She scooped them into a pile, hiding whatever was on top. Her eyes avoided mine. I crouched by the router, though it didn't really need fixing. She filled the kettle, not looking at me either. Small sounds, water, cups on wood, filled the space. You're quiet today, she said. So are you. A half-smile flickered across her face, gone before I could return it. She set a mug near me, but didn't sit. Instead, she leaned against the counter, arms crossed, the scarf now looped loosely around her neck. I shouldn't. She stopped. Took a sip instead. Never mind. I stood. The kettle hissed softly. What? Nothing, she said, but her hands tightened around the mug. I just forget sometimes how young you are. I'm not that young. Compared to me, you are. She tried to smile, but it wavered. It's complicated. Silence again. The kind that fills a room until you feel it on your skin. I could feel my pulse in my wrists. I wanted to tell her something. Anything, but words scattered like loose papers. She reached past me to adjust the router cord, her sleeve brushing my arm. Close enough that I could smell her hair. We both froze for a second. Neither moved away. Then a knock at her door. Sharp, 2 beats. We stepped apart at the same time. She went to answer, scarf slipping off one shoulder. A neighbor's voice. Quick exchange. Door closing again. She turned back, eyes unreadable. Router's fine now, I said, though I hadn't touched it. She nodded, fingers brushing the scarf back up. Thanks. We stood there, a step apart. Almost something. Almost that IT was late afternoon when we ended up walking together. She'd been heading to the post office. I'd been coming back from the corner shop. We fell into step without deciding. The sky was pale and flat, the kind of light that makes everything look like a photograph. She held a padded envelope under her arm. I carried a paper bag of groceries. We talked about nothing at first, a burst pipe in the next building, a cafe changing owners. Her voice was low, almost hoarse, like she hadn't spoken much that day. At the crosswalk she slowed, waiting even though no cars were coming. I slowed too. You seem tired, I said. She glanced at me, then away. Didn't sleep. A pause. He called again. I didn't ask who. She'd told me enough in hints. The ex, the unfinished divorce, the grown son who still texted her like she was a safe harbor. She shifted the envelope from one arm to the other. I almost didn't pick up, she said. I almost blocked the number. But then I thought, what if something's wrong? Her voice cracked a little on wrong. I wanted to reach out, but didn't. Instead, I adjusted the paper bag, fingers tightening around the handles. You're not responsible for him, I said quietly. I know. Another pause. But I feel like I am. We crossed. The street smelled of damp concrete. I could hear her breathing more than her words. We found a bench near the park. She sat first, the envelope on her lap. I sat at the far end, then drifted a little closer. A sparrow landed at our feet, hopped, flew off. I keep telling myself this is temporary, she said, that I'll be free soon. But then, she trailed off. The envelope bent slightly in her hands. Then I wonder what I'd even do with freedom. I stared at my groceries. I thought you liked fixing things. I like fixing things I can fix. She gave a dry, almost bitter laugh. People are harder. A breeze lifted a strand of her hair across her face. She didn't move it. I had to stop myself from reaching over. My heart felt too big for my ribs. She looked at me then, straight on. Do you ever feel like you're standing at the wrong door? She asked. Like you're about to knock and you shouldn't? The question jolted me. I swallowed. Sometimes, I said. Another pause. Her eyes searched mine. I shouldn't be having tea with you in cafes. You're a tenant. She stopped, shook her head. I don't know what I'm doing. My mouth went dry. Neither do I. The silence after that felt heavy but not hostile, like a room filled with rain. She rubbed her thumb over the edge of the envelope. A nervous motion she probably didn't realize I was watching. I saw you with someone yesterday, she said suddenly. Outside the stationery shop. A girl? My head lifted. A friend from college. She's visiting. I almost added, not what you think. But the words felt too loaded. She nodded, eyes flicking down. Right. Of course. The smallest tremor in her voice. Jealousy or fear, I couldn't tell. I felt it hit me like a warm ache. It's not. I started, then stopped. She's just a friend. I'm being ridiculous, she said. Forget I asked. We sat there with our unshared truths, the space between us shrinking and swelling like a tide. I could feel the confession pressing against my ribs. I wanted to say, I think about you. I wanted to say, I'm careful because I don't know where the line is. Instead, I said nothing. She set the envelope aside, hands free now. Sometimes I think you're the only person who even notices I'm here, she said, very quietly. My breath caught. I notice, I said. Maybe too much. Her hand stilled. She looked at me again, eyes dark and steady, and for a heartbeat I thought she was going to lean in, or maybe I was. A gust of wind lifted the envelope and sent it sliding off the bench. We both reached for it at the same time. Her fingers brushed mine, warm and trembling. Neither of us pulled back right away. She drew a small breath. What are we doing? She whispered. I didn't answer. And that silence hung there, a question neither of us knew how to ask. For 3 days I didn't see her. No quiet footsteps on the stairs, no thermos on the front stoop while she trimmed plants. Even her door looked different, no shoes by the mat. I told myself she was busy, out fine, but my routine tilted without her in it. On the 4th day, I walked past the cafe. Her usual window seat was empty, chair pushed in, table wiped clean. I bought tea anyway, sat alone, laptop open but not typing. Each time the bell over the door rang, my eyes flicked up. Never her. I told myself to focus. Translations piled up, but even the words blurred. I found myself rereading lines, clicking back to old messages. Her last text still on my screen. See you at 3? The cursor blinked under my unsent reply. That night the hallway smelled of paint. A new notice taped to the wall about maintenance. Her handwriting at the bottom. Quick, slanted, but no sign of her. I almost knocked. I didn't. On the 5th day she called. A short, abrupt ring. I answered too quickly. Sorry, she said, voice low. I should have told you. I'm away for a few days. Oh, I said. Everything okay? A pause. My son had an accident. Nothing serious. Just needed me to come. Another pause, softer. I'll be back soon. I could hear noise behind her. Hospital beeps, maybe, or an airport. I pictured her in a waiting room with her scarf on, clutching her phone. Take care, I said. It sounded small. You too, she said, then hung up. After that, silence. I tried to convince myself it was just distance, nothing more. But when she returned, something had shifted. She didn't stop to chat when collecting mail. Her thermos stayed in her bag. She started paying the gardener to do small repairs. One evening I caught her in the hall. Router's down again, I said lightly. I'll send someone, she said, not looking at me. You always. I started then stopped. She was already unlocking her door. Inside my apartment, her absence felt louder than her presence ever had. The mug she'd given me at the cafe sat empty on my desk. I hovered over my phone, typed. Did I do something? Deleted it. Typed again. I'm here if you want to talk. Deleted that too. I went back to the cafe the next day. She wasn't there. Her scarf was gone from her chair. A different barista. Different music. I sat at the window anyway, watching rain smear the glass. I didn't feel heartbroken, I thought. I felt paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence. I ordered a cardamom bun, her favorite, and left it untouched. At home that night, a letter had slipped under my door. Maintenance schedule. Printed. No note in her handwriting. I stood at her door with my phone in my hand, thumb over the screen. Knock or text. Neither felt right. Downstairs a neighbor's TV played faintly. Somewhere a tap dripped. The building held its breath. I slid the phone back into my pocket and went upstairs. The door stayed closed behind me. IT was late when I heard her on the stairs. A soft shuffle, the faint clink of keys. I opened my door without thinking. She was there, coat half off, scarf loose, eyes tired. For a second, we just stared at each other across the narrow hall, like strangers caught in the wrong place. Router's fine, I said, a stupid reflex. She almost smiled. I know. She took a small step closer. I'm sorry, she said. I've been distant. I noticed. My voice cracked a little. I didn't want to bother you. You weren't. She looked down at her hands, twisting her keys. I just needed space. My son, he's okay now, but it shook me. And then I realized she trailed off. I didn't know what we were doing. The hall light buzzed above us. I leaned against my doorframe, heart knocking against my ribs. Neither did I. She exhaled through her nose. Almost a laugh, almost a sigh. You're kind to me. Kinder than I expected. I don't feel kind, I said. I stopped. I keep thinking about you. even when I tell myself not to. Her eyes flicked up. You shouldn't. I know. I rubbed my thumb against the edge of the door, grounding myself. But I do. Silence filled the hall. Not hostile. Heavy, yes, but soft around the edges, like rain on a roof. She shifted her weight, keys still in her hand. Do you want to come in for tea? She asked quietly. I nodded. Okay. Her apartment was dim except for a lamp on the kitchen counter. The air smelled of mint tea and something faintly sweet. She set the kettle on without asking my preference. I sat at the table, watching her hands move automatically. Cups, tea bags, sugar, like a small ritual. I used to make tea for my son when he came home late, she said, not looking at me. It's a reflex. I forget who's in front of me sometimes. I don't mind, I said. She brought the cups over, sat down across from me. The table between us felt smaller than before. We both wrapped our hands around our mugs without drinking. I was afraid, she said finally. Not of you. Of how it might look. Of what I might start wanting. I nodded slowly. I thought you didn't want me around. I did. Her voice cracked again. But I didn't trust myself. My chest ached. I don't want to make your life harder. She gave a small, raw laugh. It's already hard. You're just unexpected. I stared at the steam rising from my tea. I'm not looking for anything, I said. I just like talking to you. Being here. She reached across the table, stopped halfway, then let her hand rest flat on the wood. A cautious offering. I mirrored her, my hand inches from hers. We didn't touch, not quite. I keep thinking, she said softly. If you were older or I were younger. But we're not, I said. But we're not, she echoed. The kettle clicked off behind us. Neither moved. I don't know what happens next, I admitted. Me neither, she said. We stayed like that for a long moment. Hands close, but not touching, mugs cooling. The noise of the building faded until all I heard was her breathing and my own. Then, very gently, she shifted her hand so her fingers brushed mine. Just a touch, barely there. But real. She didn't look at me when she did it. Her eyes stayed on the table. I didn't pull away. Okay, I whispered. Her mouth trembled like she might smile. Okay, she said back. And for the first time in weeks, the pause between us felt like a place we could sit in, not an emptiness waiting to be filled. 8 months later, the building smelled different. Fresh paint in the hallways, new plants on the windowsills. The router no longer cut out. Life had smoothed its edges. Most mornings, around 8:47 a.m., she'd leave her door open just a crack so the smell of her black coffee drifted into the hall. I'd come down for my mail then. Half an excuse, half a habit. Sometimes we'd end up walking to the corner cafe together without even planning it. We still sat at the same window table. She still brought her thermos. I still ordered tea instead of coffee, though now and then she'd sip from mine and make a face. We laughed about that, a quiet, private laugh no one else would get. The park bench where she'd once asked if I felt like I was at the wrong door had lost some paint over the winter. We passed it on our walks. Neither of us mentioned the question again, but it sat there between us like an old photograph, edges worn, no longer sharp, but still visible. Her son came to visit once. I met him briefly on the stairs. He was polite, distracted, a little taller than me. Later she told me, without drama, that she'd explained the situation to him, which was to say, not much at all. He just wants me to be happy, she said. That's enough. We didn't mark a date or make an announcement. It was more like a shift in the weather. One evening after fixing a loose cabinet door in her kitchen, I stayed for tea. She set 2 mugs down, sat across from me, then moved her chair a little closer. Our hands found each other without any speech, as though it had been rehearsed in silence for months. Now, some nights, we cook together in that same kitchen. She leans against the counter while I chop vegetables. We talk about small things, deadlines, new tenants, her plans to visit Karachi again. The kettle clicks off at the end like a period on a sentence. It isn't perfect. Some days she closes up, disappears into her room with old papers. Some days I retreat to my laptop and noise-canceling headphones. But when the silence stretches too long, one of us breaks it with a small gesture, a refill of tea, a brush of fingers, a dry remark about routers or thermoses. And each time the pause feels less like distance and more like breathing space. This morning, at 8:47 a.m., I found a note under my door. Not printed, not official. Her handwriting slanted and quick. Bench at lunch. Nothing else. At noon we sat there, our bench, paint peeling under the spring sun. She poured tea from her thermos into 2 paper cups, handed me one. We drank without speaking. The sparrows still hopped at our feet. I used to think this was a wrong door, she said quietly. Now it just feels like a door. I squeezed her hand once. No reply needed. Later, back at my desk, translating another brochure, I realized the scent of her tea still clung to my sleeve. I didn't feel paused anymore. I felt, moving, slowly, the way real things move. And that's something only we would understand. The way a simple repair turned into a life built quietly, one cup, one glance, one unsent message at a time.